The moment the elevator doors opened to the $5 million penthouse, Laura knew she'd been lied to. This wasn't some frail grandfather's deathbed arrangement. This was Joshua Beard, the city's most reclusive billionaire, standing in an open white shirt telling her the marriage contract was the only thing keeping her alive. 24 hours later, a delivery man who worked for the predator who engineered her debt bypassed building security with purple roses and a note that read, "Return the asset within 48 hours." And when Joshua pulled up the security footage, his hands were shaking for the first time since they were 7 years old and locked in a warehouse together. Which is when Laura's memories came flooding back and she realized this wasn't a rescue. It was a reunion. Laura climbed the marble staircase of the private signing suite, each step echoing in the cathedral quiet building. Her cheap heels felt criminal against imported stone. The broker had said elderly patron. Discreet. Probably wheelchair-bound, she'd imagined. Maybe ventilator-dependent. She knocked on the gilded door. "Come in." The voice was young, controlled. Nothing like what she'd expected. Laura pushed the door open. The bedroom was obscene. Gold headboard, silk sheets the color of champagne, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city skyline like a conquest. And standing by those windows, backlit by afternoon sun, was a man who looked nothing like a grandfather. He was 30, maybe, tall, tailored black pants, white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms that suggested he did more than sign contracts. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes that assessed her with the precision of someone who calculated risk for a living. Laura stopped in the doorway. "I think there's been a mistake." "No mistake." He turned fully to face her. "You're late." She checked her phone, 3 minutes past the hour. "Sorry, traffic was..." "You're Laura Slade, 22, debt holder for $5.2 million thanks to Jeffrey Morgan's creative accounting. You signed the contract downstairs 14 minutes ago." He picked up a tablet from the nightstand, tapped it, and the wire just cleared. "Your mother's house is safe." Laura's phone buzzed. Bank notification. Incoming wire transfer. $5,000. Her knees went weak. The man set down the tablet and extended his hand. Joshua Beard. The name hit her like cold water. Beard, as in Beard Capital. As in the phantom investor everyone whispered about. The reclusive billionaire who ran half the city's real estate from behind proxies and shell companies. "You're not 80, Laura heard herself say. "No," a ghost of a smile, "but I am the buyer. Still want the deal?" "Hello everyone, real quick. Please hit subscribe, like this video, and tap the bell icon. It's your little way of helping us bring more emotional, life-changing stories to you. Now, let's return to our story." Laura's brain screamed run. Her phone screen glowed with 7 zeros. Her mother's house, saved. The debt, erased. Why, she managed. Why the grandfather story? Protection. Joshua moved to the sitting area, gestured to the purple velvet sofa. "Sit. We should clarify terms." Laura sat because her legs gave her no choice. Joshua remained standing, classic power play, but his expression wasn't cruel, just watchful. "The contract you signed it is real," he said. 3 months, ceremonial marriage, public appearances as needed. "You'll live in my penthouse, separate wings, separate bedrooms. I don't touch you. You don't interfere with my business." "That doesn't explain the misdirection?" Joshua's jaw tightened. "Your debt wasn't accidental, Laura. Jeffrey Morgan forged your signature on loan documents, embedded balloon clauses, funneled the money to a man named Gary Ambrose, a creditor who specializes in human collateral." Laura's stomach turned. "If the world knew Joshua Beard bought a 22-year-old bride for $5 million, you'd be front-page news. Ambrose would triple his offer. Others would circle. The elderly patron story keeps you invisible." "Safe." "Safe," Laura echoed. The word tasted wrong. "By trapping me in a fake marriage. By giving you legal protection." Joshua pulled a document from the desk. Corporate letterhead, dense legal text. "I've filed a binding protection notice with every major creditor and enforcement agency. Any attempt to purchase, detain, or coerce you triggers automatic litigation from Beard Capital's legal team." He said it in front of her. "You're not for sale. Not anymore." Laura stared at the paper, at the clause that read, Subject, Laura Slade. Status, under corporate protection. Violation penalties, 50 miles plus criminal referral. You spent $5 million just to protect me? I spent $5 million to correct an injustice. Joshua's voice softened slightly. And to make sure Jeffrey Morgan and Gary Ambrose never profit from you again. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Laura looked at this stranger, this impossibly wealthy, impossibly young man who'd just rewritten her life, and saw something flicker behind his executive mask. Guilt, recognition, she couldn't place it. The rules are simple, Joshua continued, back to business. You live here. We appear together at select events, gallery openings, charity functions, anything requiring a +1. You're free to work, study, pursue whatever you want. The only requirements are discretion and availability when I need you for appearances. And after 3 months, clean divorce, no fault. You keep a settlement separate from the $5 million, enough to start fresh anywhere you want. Laura's phone buzzed again. A text from Jeffrey Morgan. Heard you went through with it. Smart girl. But I've got a better buyer lined up if you're interested. Double the offer. Think about it. Her blood ran cold. Joshua noticed her expression, held out his hand. May I? She showed him the text. His face went granite. He's already trying to resell you. Joshua pulled out his own phone, typed rapidly. I'm flagging this with my legal team. If he contacts you again, he won't stop. Laura's voice cracked. Jeffrey doesn't stop. He'll find a way. Not while you're under my name. Joshua's eyes locked on hers, and for the first time, she saw the predator beneath the polish. You signed a contract with me, Laura. That makes you legally untouchable. Anyone who tries to buy you now is committing fraud and harassment. And I promise you, his voice dropped to something lethal. I will bury them. The certainty in his tone should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground she'd stood on in months. So what now? Laura asked. Now you move in. Tonight. Joshua checked his watch. Expensive, understated. I've arranged for your belongings to be retrieved from your current address. A car will pick you up at 8. That's 3 hours. I know. You're very particular about timelines. Yes. That ghost of a smile again. Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Beard. Laura left the residence suite in a daze, descended the marble staircase, and stepped into the late afternoon sun. The city looked the same. Same traffic, same noise. But everything had shifted. She pulled out her phone. 6 missed calls from Jeffrey. 2 from her mother. 1 from an unknown number. The unknown number had left a voicemail. Laura pressed play. Miss Slade, my name is Gary Ambrose. I believe we have business to discuss regarding certain assets currently under dispute. Call me back within 24 hours or I'll be forced to take less pleasant measures. Your new husband can't protect you forever. Laura's hand shook. A black town car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door. Miss Slade, Mr. Beard sent me. He thought you might want an escort home. Home. As if she still had one. Laura climbed into the car. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from Joshua. Ambrose just called you. Ignore him. Pack light. The penthouse has everything you'll need. JB. She stared at the message. How did he know Ambrose had called? Was he monitoring her phone? Her location? A second text arrived. Not monitoring. I have alerts on anyone in Ambrose's network. You're safe. Trust me. Laura didn't know if she could trust him. But as the car pulled away from the signing suite and she watched the building shrink in the rearview mirror, she realized something. Joshua Beard had just spent $5 million to buy her freedom. The question was, what did he really want in return? And why did the name Beard feel so familiar, like a half-remembered dream from childhood? Laura. The penthouse occupied the entire 53rd floor. Laura stepped out of the private elevator into a space that looked like it had been designed by someone who understood wealth as a language. Minimalist furniture in shades of cream and charcoal, floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into wallpaper. Art that probably cost more than her mother's house. Joshua was already there, jacket discarded, pouring 2 glasses of water at the marble kitchen island. Your room is through there. He gestured to the east wing. Ensuite bathroom, walk-in closet. I had essentials stocked, toiletries, basics. Your belongings will arrive within the hour. Laura set down her purse, the only thing she'd brought from the car. You said you were protecting me. From what exactly? Joshua slid 1 glass across the island toward her. From the same people who engineered your debt in the first place. Jeffrey. Jeffrey's the middleman. The architect is Gary Ambrose. Joshua pulled out his tablet, tapped through several screens, then turned it to face her. This is your debt structure. Look at it. Laura stepped closer. The screen showed a flowchart, her name at the center, lines branching out to loan documents, interest calculations, payment schedules. But the deeper she looked, the stranger it became. Signatures that weren't quite hers, clauses added in different fonts, shell companies listed as creditors. These aren't real, she whispered. Most of them aren't. Jeffrey forged your signature on secondary loans, then sold the debt to subsidiaries controlled by Ambrose. Every payment you made went into a labyrinth designed to keep you trapped. Joshua swiped to another screen. Bank transfers, dates, amounts. Ambrose specializes in this. He targets vulnerable people, manufactures debt, then offers alternative repayment. Human collateral. Exactly. Joshua's expression darkened. You weren't the first woman Jeffrey delivered to him, but you'll be the last. Laura's hands trembled. She set down the water glass before she dropped it. You knew all this before you made the offer. Yes. So the marriage was the fastest legal shield I could deploy. Joshua closed the tablet. Ambrose can't touch a Beard Capital spouse without triggering a corporate war. The grandfather story kept your name out of the press, which means no bidding war, no public spectacle. Just a quiet transaction that neutered his leverage. You didn't buy me, Laura said slowly, testing the words. You bought my safety. I bought you time. 3 months to dismantle the debt structure, expose Ambrose's network, and make sure Jeffrey Morgan never practices this kind of predation again. Joshua, he watched her process it, the intelligence behind her eyes recalculating, reassessing. Most people folded under this kind of revelation. Laura Slade straightened her spine. Why now, she asked. Why spend $5 million on a stranger? Because you're not a stranger, Joshua thought. Because 15 years ago you chewed through duct tape until your gums bled and screamed until someone found us. Because I've spent half my life building an empire just to have the power to pay that debt. But he couldn't say that. Not yet. The therapist his mother had forced him to see after the kidnapping had warned him. Trauma bonds looked like romance until they collapsed into codependency. Laura needed to choose freely, not because he'd engineered her gratitude. Let's call it correcting a market failure, Joshua said instead. Ambrose's model relies on isolation and shame. I'm removing both. Laura studied him for a long moment. You're lying, but I don't think you're lying about the danger. Perceptive, dangerous. No, Joshua admitted, the danger is real, which is why we need to establish some ground rules. He pulled a folder from the drawer, crisp, official, Beard Capital letterhead. I've filed a protection notice with every major creditor, law enforcement agency, and financial regulator in the state. As of 6:47 p.m. today, you're listed as a Beard Capital principal spouse. Any attempt to coerce, detain, or purchase you triggers automatic legal action and a $50 million penalty. Laura took the document, scanned it. Her name in bold at the top. Status, protected asset, violation consequences, severe. Protected asset, she read aloud. That's what I am to you. That's what you are to them. Joshua moved around the island, closer but not crowding. To me, you're a person who deserves not to be sold. There's a difference. Laura, her phone buzzed. Another text from Jeffrey. Running out of patience, Laura. My buyer doesn't like to be kept waiting. Joshua glanced at the screen. Block his number, now. He'll just use another, then we'll get you a new phone. Corporate security line, encrypted. Joshua was already texting someone. You're off the grid as of tonight. I have a life, friends, job interviews, which you can maintain through secure channels. His tone softened slightly. I'm not locking you in a cage, Laura. I'm making sure the cage door is closed on the people hunting you. Before she could respond, the elevator chimed. Joshua's posture shifted. Subtle, but she caught it. Tension in his shoulders, hand drifting toward his phone. Expecting someone? Laura asked. No, he checked the security feed on his tablet. Lobby says there's a photographer outside, possibly paparazzi. How did they? Someone tipped them. Probably Jeffrey or Ambrose, testing how public I'm willing to go. Joshua set down the tablet. We need to leave. Now. Leave, we just got here. There's a dinner reservation. Intercontinental private room. It was always part of tonight's plan. Joshua grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair. And now it's also a test. If we stay hidden, they'll know we're hiding something. If we go public, we control the narrative. Laura's stomach nodded. I'm not ready for, you don't have to be ready. You just have to be mine. Joshua extended his hand. 3 months, Laura. We play the role and I dismantle the threat. Can you do that? She looked at his hand, strong, steady, offering something between partnership and possession. Laura took it. Joshua, the photographer, was waiting by the lobby elevator. Telephoto lens, professional rig, the kind that sold images at tabloids for 5 figures. Joshua laced his fingers through Laura's as they stepped out. Her hand was cold, but she didn't pull away. The photographer's flash erupted. Mr. Beard, is this your... Good evening, Joshua said smoothly, guiding Laura past with the ease of someone who'd been dodging cameras since birth. We're late for dinner. The limousine was already waiting. Joshua opened the door for Laura, old-fashioned, intentional, and slid in beside her. The privacy screen was up. They were alone in leather and mahogany silence. You okay? He asked. Define okay. Still breathing, not running. Laura exhaled shakily. Barely. The limousine pulled into traffic. Joshua poured her sparkling water from the built-in bar. Something to do with her hands. She accepted it like a lifeline. His phone buzzed. Security update. Package delivered to penthouse. No authorization on file. Joshua's blood went cold. Driver, turn around. Now. Laura, they were back at the penthouse in 12 minutes. Joshua moved through the space like a soldier clearing a room, checking corners, scanning surfaces. Laura followed, heart hammering. On the dining table sat a crystal vase filled with purple roses. A dozen, pristine, the kind that cost $200 at luxury florists. Tucked among the stems, a card. Joshua pulled latex gloves from a drawer. Of course he had latex gloves, and extracted the card by its edges. He read it. His expression turned to stone. What does it say? Laura demanded. Joshua handed it to her. The message was typed, formal, chilling. Return the asset within 48 hours, or we reclaim her by other means. G.A. Gary Ambrose. Laura's knees buckled. Joshua caught her elbow, steadied her. He was here, she whispered. In your building. He... Not him, a courier. Joshua was already pulling up security footage on his phone. But I'll know who in 30 seconds. The footage loaded, lobby camera, timestamp 7:23 p.m. A delivery man in generic uniform, baseball cap pulled low, carrying a wrapped bouquet. He bypassed the front desk, went straight to the service elevator. Joshua zoomed in on the man's face. Laura's breath stopped. She knew that face, the crooked nose from a bar fight, the scar above his left eyebrow. That's Marcus, she said, Jeffrey's assistant. He drove me to job interviews last year when my car broke down. Joshua's expression went arctic. They're not just circling, they're inside the perimeter. He made a call, 3 rings. Then, I need a full security sweep, penthouse level, all access points, visitor logs for the last 72 hours. And put a flag on Marcus Reeves, Jeffrey Morgan's associate. If he comes within 100 yards of this building, I want him detained. Joshua hung up, looked at Laura. Pack a bag, we're not staying here tonight. Somewhere they can't find us. Somewhere I control every entrance. His voice was calm, but his eyes held something feral. You're not an asset, Laura, but they think you are, and that makes you a target. The purple roses seemed to watch them, beautiful and poisonous. Laura stared at the card in her shaking hand. 48 hours. The clock had started. Laura, the email arrived at 6:47 a.m., 3 days after the purple roses. Subject, congratulations. Position offer from Vivian Chen, HR Director, Meridian Design House. Laura read it twice, certain she'd misunderstood. She'd applied to Meridian on a whim 2 weeks ago, before the contract, before Joshua, back when her biggest problem was choosing which bill to pay late. The position was junior design coordinator. Entry level, exactly what her patchwork resume and incomplete degree qualified her for. She hadn't expected a response, let alone an offer. Joshua? She found him in the penthouse's glass-walled office, 3 monitors glowing with financial data. Did you? No, he didn't look up. I told HR to run your application blind. No name flags, no special consideration. If they hired you, it's because you earned it. Laura studied his profile, the sharp focus, the controlled posture. He was telling the truth. She'd learned to read his lies by now. They came with a slight tightness around his eyes. This wasn't one. Meridian is Beard Capital Property, she said slowly. You own the company. Through 3 subsidiary layers, yes, but the hiring manager doesn't know you're connected to me. Neither does anyone else there. Now Joshua looked at her. You wanted to work. I made sure you could do it on your own terms. Take the job or don't. Your choice. Laura looked at the email again. Start date, Monday, 9:00 a.m., 2 days from now. I'll take it, she said. Meridian Design House occupied a converted warehouse in the Arts District. Exposed brick, steel beams, the kind of industrial chic that screamed creative without sacrificing profit margins. Laura arrived 15 minutes early, wearing the only professional outfit she owned that didn't scream thrift store clearance. The design floor was organized chaos, drafting tables, fabric swatches, mannequins in various states of dress. A dozen employees moved with purposeful energy, barely noticing her arrival. Laura Slade? She turned. A man in his 40s approached. Thin-framed glasses, expensive watch, smile that didn't reach his eyes. His name tag read, Mr. John, Senior Coordinator. That's me. I'm your direct supervisor. Mr. John's handshake was perfunctory. HR says you're starting today. That's unusual. We typically have a longer onboarding process. I'm happy to jump right in. I'm sure you are. His tone carried something Laura couldn't quite place. Resentment? Suspicion? Let me show you your station. He led her to a desk in the corner, smallest in the room, positioned near the supply closet. Around them, other coordinators worked in paired clusters, sharing ideas, laughing. Laura's station was isolated. Message received. Your first assignment. Mr. John dropped a thick folder on her desk. Client pitch for the Harrington Foundation Gala. They want a sustainable luxury line. Full concept boards, fabric sourcing, cost projections. Due Friday. Laura checked the calendar on her phone. That's 3 days. Most coordinators get 2 weeks, but since you're so eager, Mr. John's smile sharpened, I'm sure you'll manage. Unless you'd like to explain to HR that the position is too challenging. Around them, conversations had stopped. Everyone was watching, waiting to see if the new girl would fold. Laura met Mr. John's eyes. I'll have it on your desk Thursday. Give you time to review before the deadline. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe anger. We'll see. By lunch, Laura understood the game. Mr. John assigned her every grunt task no one else wanted. Organizing the fabric library, inventorying buttons, updating supplier databases. Work that kept her visible, busy, and far from any actual design. She did it without complaint. At 2:00 p.m., the elevator chimed, and the energy in the room shifted. A woman emerged, 60s, impeccably dressed in tailored silk, hair pulled into an elegant chignon. She moved through the space like she owned it, which Laura realized she probably did in some capacity. Employees straightened, smiled, murmured greetings. The woman's gaze swept the room and landed on Laura. You must be the new coordinator. Her voice was cultured, sharp. Laura Slade, I presume? Yes, ma'am. Madam Chin. She extended a hand, cool, formal. I'm on Meridian's advisory board. I also serve as guardian to Joshua Beard. A pause waited with meaning. I believe you have met him. The room went silent. Laura shook Madam Chin's hand, matching her grip. I have. How fortuitous. Madam Chin's smile was surgical. I wasn't aware Meridian was hiring the $5 million bride. HR must have forgotten to mention it. Heat flooded Laura's face. Around them, employees whispered. Phones appeared. Someone would be texting this to the entire company within minutes. It was a merit-based hire, Laura said evenly. I didn't use Joshua's name. Of course not. That would be gauche. Madam Chin's eyes traveled over Laura's cheap blazer, her off-brand heels. Still, appearances matter in this industry. Perhaps we should discuss the optics privately? Madame Chin's office was on the top floor, mahogany and leather, art that belonged in museums. She poured tea from a porcelain set that probably cost more than Laura's education. Let me be direct, Madame Chin said, settling into her chair with regal precision. Joshua's marriage to you is problematic. Beard Capital's reputation depends on strategic alliances, not impulsive rescues of indebted girls. The marriage was his idea. The marriage was a stopgap. Effective, I'll grant you, but temporary. Madam Chin slid a document across the desk. I'm proposing an annulment. Quiet, dignified. Once your debt situation stabilizes, another month, perhaps two, we dissolve the arrangement. You'll receive a generous settlement. Everyone walks away intact. Laura looked at the paper. Proposed annulment terms, confidential. Does Joshua know you're offering this? Joshua will understand the necessity once I explain it properly. The door opened. Joshua entered, still in his suit from whatever meeting Madame Chin had pulled him from. His expression was unreadable. Madame Chin, he said politely, ambushing my wife at her workplace wasn't on today's agenda. Your wife, Madame Chin's tone could have cut glass. A legal fiction to circumvent predators. Don't pretend it's more. It's exactly as much as it needs to be. Joshua moved to stand beside Laura's chair. Not possessive, but present. And the arrangement stands for the full 3 months. We agreed that. You agreed without consulting the family. I'm the head of the family, madame. The decision is mine. The air between them crackled with old power struggles, unspoken histories. Laura felt like she was watching a chess match where she was somehow both pawn and prize. Finally, Madam Chin set down her teacup. Very well, but understand, Miss Slade, the formal address was deliberate. You're under scrutiny now. One misstep, one hint of scandal, and I will ensure the annulment regardless of Joshua's objections. Understood, Laura said. Madame Chin's gaze lingered on her a moment longer, then shifted to Joshua. There's a charity gala next week. St. Catherine's Hospital fundraiser. I chair the board. You'll both attend. Smile for the cameras. Show the world this marriage is legitimate. It wasn't a request. Laura returned to her desk to find a business card tucked under her keyboard. Head nurse Patricia Morris, St. Catherine's Hospital, private wing. A handwritten note on the back. Madame Chin mentioned you've been under stress. If you ever feel faint or need medical attention, I'm here to help. Discretion assured. Laura pocketed the card, unsettled. At 5:47 p.m., her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Blind item for tomorrow's gossip column. Which reclusive CEO just purchased his Cinderella for a cool $5 million? Sources say the contract bride will make her debut at this week's charity gala. Wonder if the glass slipper fits, or if it'll shatter under scrutiny. Can't wait to meet you, Mrs. Beard. Vijay, Laura's hands shook. Wayne Jones, the socialite Joshua had mentioned in passing. Old money, vicious tongue, someone who collected scandals like art. The hunter had found her. And the gala was in 5 days. The dress hung in Laura's closet like an accusation. Purple silk, not quite violet, not quite plum, cut on the bias so it would drape like liquid. Spaghetti straps, low back, the kind of elegance that required confidence Laura didn't possess. A note pinned to the hanger in Joshua's precise handwriting. Looks like courage. Wear it tonight. JB. Laura touched the fabric. It whispered against her fingertips, expensive and foreign. Need help? She turned. Joshua stood in the doorway of her bedroom, first time he'd crossed that threshold. wearing tuxedo pants and a crisp white dress shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, bow tie hanging loose around his neck. He looked like he'd walked off a magazine cover. Polished, dangerous, utterly in control. "I can dress myself," Laura said. "I meant moral support." Joshua leaned against the doorframe. "Wayne Jones will be there tonight. He'll try to embarrass you, make you feel small. That's his specialty. And I'm supposed to just smile through it. You're supposed to remember you're not alone." Joshua's expression softened slightly. "I'll be 3 feet away the entire night. He won't touch you." Laura looked at the dress again. "What if I can't do this?" "Then we leave, but I think you're stronger than you know." He straightened. "I'll be in the car in 20 minutes. He left before she could respond. The St. Catherine's Hospital Gala occupied the grand ballroom of the Rothmore Hotel. 3-story ceilings, crystal chandeliers the size of cars, enough white roses to fill a conservatory. The city's elites circulated in designer gowns and $1,000 tuxedos, champagne flutes catching light like liquid diamonds. Laura descended the hotel's grand staircase on Joshua's arm, every eye tracking their entrance. "Smile," Joshua murmured. "You look stunning." She forced her lips into something approximating confidence. The purple dress moved with her like a second skin, transforming her from prey into something sleeker. Heads turned, whispers followed. "That's her, the $5 million bride." Madame Chin materialized near the bar, devastating in black silk, diamonds at her throat. Her gaze traveled over Laura with clinical assessment, then shifted to Joshua. "Try to survive the night without creating a scandal," she said coolly, then glided away. Joshua's hand tightened on Laura's waist. "Ignore her. Let's get you a drink." Wayne Jones found them at the champagne fountain. He was beautiful in the way poisonous things often are. Perfect bone structure, honey-colored hair, a smile that promised charm and delivered cruelty. He wore his tuxedo like armor and carried himself with the ease of someone who'd never been denied anything. "Joshua Beard." Wayne's voice was smooth, practiced. "I almost didn't recognize you with a date. How unexpected." "Wayne," Joshua's tone was cordial ice. "Still chasing gossip columns? I see. Someone has to keep the public entertained." Wayne's gaze slid to Laura, assessing, dismissive. "And you must be the famous Mrs. Beard, the mystery woman who appeared overnight. How romantic." "Laura Slade," she said, extending her hand. Wayne took it, his grip lingering a moment too long. "I've heard so much about you. The whirlwind courtship, the private ceremony. Very efficient." He plucked 2 champagne flutes from a passing server, offered one to Laura. "We should toast to new beginnings, to love that transcends financial arrangements." Laura's stomach nodded, but she accepted the glass. "To new beginnings." Wayne raised his own flute, watching her with predatory focus. "Drink up. The night is young." Joshua's hand found Laura's elbow, gentle but firm. "Actually, we were just—" "Mr. Beard." A woman brushed past, severe features, hospital scrubs under an evening coat. "Head nurse Patricia Morris, the card lever from Meridian." She paused just long enough to lean close to Laura, voice barely audible beneath the string quartet. "You look flushed, dear. Low blood sugar can be dangerous at events like this. Perhaps you should sit down." Her eyes flicked meaningfully to the champagne. "Before you feel worse." Then she was gone, vanishing into the crowd. Laura stared at the golden liquid in her glass. Wayne watched her with barely concealed amusement. "Drink," he urged. "Don't let it get warm." She raised the flute to her lips. Joshua's hand closed over hers, stopping her. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes had gone predatory. "Switch with me," he said quietly. "What?" "Your glass." "Switch with mine." His voice was calm, but the command underneath was absolute. Wayne's smile faltered. "Joshua, really, you're being paranoid." "Humor me." Joshua took Laura's flute, handed her his own untouched glass. Then he lifted hers to his nose, inhaled. His expression went cold. "When did you last eat?" he asked Laura. "Lunch." "Why?" Joshua set down the champagne on the nearest table, his phone already in hand. "We're leaving, now." "Joshua," Wayne started. "Don't." The single word carried lethal weight. Don't speak to me. Don't approach her. Don't exist in my vicinity. Joshua guided Laura toward the exit, pace unhurried but purposeful. Behind them, Wayne's face had gone white. In the limousine, Joshua ran through questions with clinical precision. Heart rate? Any dizziness? Nausea? Blurred vision? I'm fine. Your pulse is racing. His fingers were at her wrist, counting. 120, sitting down. That's not fine. Maybe I'm just nervous. Maybe someone poisoned your champagne. Joshua pulled out his phone, made a call. I need a mobile lab unit at the Rothmore service entrance. Suspected digitalis poisoning. Run a full tox screen on the attached sample. He'd sealed Laura's champagne flute in an evidence bag from God knows where, and pull CCTV from the ballroom. I want to know everyone who touched that glass. Laura's hand shook. You think Wayne? I think Wayne wants you humiliated or dead, and I think someone helped him. Joshua's jaw was granite. But we're going to prove it. Hours later, the evidence arrived in a manila folder. Bank transfers from Wayne Jones to Patricia Morris. $50,000. Deposited 3 days before the gala. CCTV footage showed the head nurse passing the champagne server. Fingers brushing the stem of one specific flute, Laura's, before it reached the fountain. The lab report confirmed it. Digitalis. Enough to cause arrhythmia, possible cardiac arrest in someone with the right physiology. Not enough to kill immediately. Just enough to create a medical crisis in public, complete with a helpful head nurse suggesting Laura wasn't strong enough for this life. Joshua's response was surgical. Wayne's trust fund accounts, frozen pending fraud investigation. His social club memberships, suspended. His upcoming art gallery opening, major donors suddenly unavailable. By Sunday morning, Wayne Jones was radioactive. Patricia Morris was arrested at St. Catherine's during her shift. Let out in handcuffs while Madame Sheen watched from the hospital administrative wing, her expression unreadable. Laura's phone buzzed at 11:43 p.m. A text from Jeffrey Morgan. You really think beard can protect you forever? I gave you a chance to walk away clean. Last offer, meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., and I'll void your original debt. No strings. Your freedom for real this time. Below the message, a location pin. Laura clicked it. The map loaded. Her blood turned to ice. The old riverfront warehouse, abandoned for a decade. The same warehouse that haunted her nightmares, though she couldn't remember why. Another text. Come alone. Bring beard, and the deal's off. This is your only way out, Laura. Trust me. She stared at the screen. Joshua was 3 rooms away, probably still working, unaware. The warehouse address glowed like a wound. And somewhere in the back of Laura's mind, a child's voice screamed a warning she couldn't quite hear. She left at 1:47 p.m. while Joshua was on a conference call in his office. The note she'd written sat on the kitchen counter. Gone to settle something. Don't follow. I need to do this alone. L. Coward's words. But Laura couldn't face him, couldn't explain why she needed to believe Jeffrey's promise of freedom, even knowing it was probably a lie. $5 million. Joshua had spent it without hesitation, but Laura felt it like a chain. Every silk dress, every protected moment, every frozen bank account on her behalf. Debts that couldn't be repaid in 3 months or 3 lifetimes. Maybe this was her chance to end it cleanly. The cab dropped her 2 blocks from the warehouse. Laura walked the rest, past chain-link fences tagged with graffiti, past weeds reclaiming cracked pavement. The river stank of diesel and rot. The warehouse loomed ahead, red bricks stained with decades of weather. Windows broken, door hanging crooked on rusted hinges. Something about it made her skin crawl. Laura pushed through the door. Joshua? He found the note at 2:03 p.m. 3 words in, Joshua's blood went cold. By the time he finished reading, he was already pulling up Laura's phone location, a tracker he'd installed the day after the purple roses, insurance she didn't know about. The dot pulsed on his screen. Riverfront District. Moving slowly, then stopping. At a warehouse. Joshua's hands trembled. Actual physical tremor he hadn't felt since he was 7 years old, and waking up in darkness with his wrists bound. He knew that warehouse. He'd been there before. Laura, the interior was cavernous, shipping crates stacked like monuments. shadows pooling in corners, the ceiling lost to darkness. Laura's footsteps echoed against concrete. Jeffrey? Her voice sounded small, swallowed by the space. A figure emerged from behind a crate. Jeffrey Morgan, older than she remembered, harder around the edges. Behind him, two more men. One she didn't recognize. 50s, expensive suit, cold eyes. Gary Ambrose. The other, Laura's breath stopped. Her father. Gaunt, gray-haired, 20 years of bad decisions etched into his face. She hadn't seen him since she was 12, since the day police had taken him away for reasons no one would explain to her. "Hello, sweetheart." His voice was gravel and cigarettes. "Been a long time." Laura backed toward the door. It slammed shut. Someone she hadn't seen had circled behind. "Easy now." Jeffrey raised his hands in mock surrender. "We just want to talk about your contract with Beard. I'm not breaking it. We're not asking you to." Gary Ambrose stepped forward, predatory grace. "We're asking you to share. See, Joshua Beard put you in trust, gave you shares, signing authority, access. That makes you valuable. Not as a wife," his smile was razors, "as leverage. I don't have access to anything as he, but you will. 3 months, remember? When the contract ends and the assets transfer." Ambrose pulled out a document, set it on a nearby crate. "Sign this. Transfer those shares to us, and you walk away clean. Your father's debt's forgiven too." Laura's father laughed, bitter, broken sound. "Always knew you'd be worth something eventually. Raised you right, didn't I?" The warehouse spun, not from fear, from something else. A feeling like déjà vu, but sharper, more visceral. She'd been here before, not as an adult, as a child, duct tape around her wrists. A sandy-haired boy crying beside her in the dark. Her father's voice, slurred and angry. "They'll pay for you both. Just need to wait for the call." A fire alarm on the wall, rusted but functional. She'd pulled it, screamed until her throat bled. Someone had come. "Laura?" The voice cut through memory like a blade. Joshua stood in the doorway, hands raised, unarmed. His face was pale, controlled, but his eyes held the same terror she'd seen in the sandy-haired boy 15 years ago. "Let her go," Joshua said quietly. "Take me instead, Joshua." The warehouse smelled the same. Rust and mildew, and the particular kind of damp that came from proximity to the river. He'd had nightmares about this place for 15 years. Now he was walking back into it, willingly, because Laura was inside. Gary Ambrose smiled. "Joshua Beard, the recluse appears. How convenient. You want leverage? Leverage? I'm better leverage." Joshua's voice stayed level through pure force of will. "CEO of Beard Capital, actual signing authority, no waiting period. Let Laura walk and I'll transfer whatever you want." "Joshua, no," Laura started. "She's not part of this," Joshua continued, eyes locked on Ambrose. "She never was. This is between you and me. It's always been between you and me." Her father laughed again. "Kid's got a hero complex, just like last time." Laura's head snapped toward Joshua. "Last time?" Joshua didn't answer, couldn't. Because he was 7 years old again, hands bound, watching a little girl with tangled hair chew through duct tape until her gums bled, hearing her scream for help. "You," Laura whispered. "The boy. That was you." Memory crashed over her in waves, the warehouse, the kidnapping, her father's drunken plan to ransom 2 wealthy children. Joshua Beard, heir to a fortune. Laura Slade, collateral to ensure cooperation. She'd freed him, triggered the alarm, gotten them rescued, and her father had blamed her for it ever since. "Touching reunion," Ambrose said. "Now sign the papers, both of you, or—" Laura moved. The fire alarm was exactly where memory said it would be, rusted red box mounted on the wall behind Jeffrey. She lunged, dodged Jeffrey's grab, and slammed her palm against it. The sound was deafening. Mechanical shriek that split the air like artillery. Ambrose flinched. Her father covered his ears. Joshua moved like water. He closed the distance to Ambrose in 2 strides, caught the man's reaching arm, twisted it into a joint lock, used momentum to drive him face first into the concrete. Clean, efficient, non-lethal. Jeffrey rushed him. Joshua sidestepped, hooked Jeffrey's ankle, sent him sprawling. Laura's father pulled something from his jacket, looked like a knife. Laura grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor and swung. It connected with his wrist. The weapon clattered away. "I'm not your currency," she said, voice shaking but steady. "Not anymore." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Joshua's phone buzzed. He checked it, breathing hard. Madame Chin called them. "She's been tracking us both since the gala." Police burst through the door 30 seconds later. Tactical gear, weapons drawn, barked commands. Ambrose, Jeffrey, and Laura's father were on the ground in moments, zip-tied and subdued. An officer approached Joshua. "Mr. Beard? Ma'am, are you hurt?" "No," Joshua said. "We're—" Laura swayed. Joshua caught her before she hit the ground. "Laura! Laura, stay with me!" Her heartbeat was wrong. Too fast, then skipping. Her skin was gray. "Medic!" Joshua's voice cracked. "I need a medic now!" The ambulance smelled like antiseptic and fear. Laura drifted in and out, Joshua's hand gripping hers, paramedics shouting medical terms she didn't understand, the siren's wail matching the rhythm in her chest. BP dropping. "Start IV, push atropine." "What's her medical history?" Joshua's voice, tight with panic. "Possible digitalis exposure 3 days ago. She tested clean at the scene." The paramedic leaned closer to his partner, voice low but not low enough. "Digitalis has a long half-life. Could still be in her system. Stress might have triggered delayed cardiac effects." The world went fuzzy at the edges. Laura heard Joshua whisper her name like a prayer, then darkness took her. Laura woke to the sound of machines. Rhythmic beeping, soft hiss of oxygen. The particular chemical smell of hospitals that meant antiseptic and fear. Her chest felt heavy, constrained. Monitors attached to her skin, IV line snaking into her arm. She turned her head. Joshua sat in a plastic chair beside her bed, still wearing yesterday's shirt. Wrinkled now, collar open, sleeves rolled up. His eyes were closed, head tilted back against the wall, but his hand rested on the edge of her mattress. Close. Not touching, but close enough to reach if she needed him. He looked exhausted. "You're awake." Laura startled. Joshua's eyes were open now, tracking her with that sharp focus that never quite softened. "How long?" Her voice came out raspy. 18 hours. You had a cardiac event at the warehouse. Digitalis-induced arrhythmia." Joshua leaned forward, and Laura saw the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "They stabilized you, but your potassium levels were critically low. You've been on a drip since we arrived." "You stayed. Where else would I be?" Before Laura could answer, the door opened. Head nurse Patricia Morris entered with a clipboard, her expression professionally sympathetic. "Mrs. Beard, good to see you conscious." She checked the monitors with practiced efficiency. "Your vitals are improving, but I have concerns about your long-term prognosis." Joshua stood. "What concerns?" "The digitalis exposure caused significant strain on her heart, combined with stress factors, the recent trauma, the warehouse incident." Patricia's gaze slid to Laura with calculated worry. "I'm not sure she's strong enough for the lifestyle you're asking her to maintain." "What are you suggesting?" Laura asked. Patricia set down her clipboard, voice dropping to something meant to sound kind. "That perhaps this arrangement isn't sustainable. For your health, a young woman with a weakened heart, thrust into high society pressure, constant scrutiny." She paused meaningfully. "Sometimes the kindest thing is to acknowledge when a situation is harmful." "You're suggesting an annulment," Joshua said flatly. "I'm suggesting Mrs. Beard's well-being should come first. If the marriage is causing medical crises, the marriage didn't poison her champagne. Wayne Jones did. With your help." Joshua's voice was ice. "So let's dispense with the concerned caregiver routine." Patricia's expression flickered, just for a moment, before resetting to professional neutrality. "Mr. Beard, I understand you're upset. I want a second lab panel, full toxicology screen, run by an independent lab, not St. Catherine's. That's highly irregular." "I don't care." Joshua pulled out his phone. "I'm calling in my own medical team. They'll draw blood within the hour." Patricia's jaw tightened. Hospital protocol requires, hospital protocol doesn't override patient rights. Laura, Joshua turned to her. Do you consent to additional testing? Laura looked between them, Patricia's too smooth concern, Joshua's barely restrained fury. Yes, I consent. Patricia's smile was sharp enough to cut. Of course. I'll note it in your chart. She left, heels clicking against linoleum with mechanical precision. Joshua waited until the door closed. She's going to try to bury the results. How do you know? Because I've seen predators before, and she's one of them. The second lab team arrived 90 minutes later. 3 technicians with credentials from University Medical Center, equipment that looked military grade. They drew blood, documented everything, left with samples sealed in evidence bags. Joshua never moved from his plastic chair. At 3:47 p.m., the door opened again. Madam Chin swept in wearing Chanel and quiet fury, followed by 2 men in dark suits. One carried a briefcase marked with the State Compliance Board seal. The other had a detective's badge clipped to his belt. Joshua, Madam Chin's gaze swept the room. Laura in the hospital bed, Joshua in his wrinkled shirt, the vigil neither of them mentioned. We need to talk. Now. They convened in the hospital's administrative conference room, sterile, fluorescent lit, designed for delivering bad news. The compliance officer opened his briefcase, spread documents across the table like evidence at trial. Bank records, wire transfers from Wayne Jones to Patricia Morris, $50,000, deposited April 3rd. The detective added more papers, text message records, recovered from Ms. Morris's personal phone after we obtained a warrant. He slid printouts toward Madam Chin. Detailed dosage instructions, timing protocols, how to spike the champagne without triggering immediate symptoms. Laura's stomach turned. She'd been right there. One sip away from... There's more, the detective continued. Hospital lab records show Morris mislabeled Laura's initial tox screen. The digitalis was flagged by the automated system, but Morris manually overrode it, marked the reading as equipment error. She tried to kill me twice, Laura whispered. Once at the gala, once here. She tried to finish what Wayne started. Joshua's voice was granite. Then gaslight you into thinking you were too weak for this life. Madam Chin was silent, studying the evidence with the focus of someone recalculating years of assumptions. Where is she now? Joshua asked. In custody, the detective said. We arrested her 20 minutes ago in the staff locker room. She's being processed downtown. Wayne Jones is already in holding. Press charges, Joshua said immediately. Attempted murder, conspiracy, medical malpractice. Everything. Already done. The detective gathered his papers. You'll both need to give formal statements, but that can wait until Mrs. Beard is discharged. They left. The compliance officer, the detective. Professional efficiency that came after the damage was already done. Madame Chin remained. She stood at the window, looking down at the hospital parking lot. Her hospital, the one she'd funded, where her trusted head nurse had just tried to murder someone under her roof. I underestimated you, she said finally, not turning around. Laura wasn't sure who she was talking to until Madame Chin continued. I saw a girl who took money, a transaction, something temporary and disposable. Now she turned, and her expression was different, softer, but not kind, respectful. I didn't see the girl who protected Joshua when they were children, the one who chewed through duct tape and triggered that alarm. Joshua's hand found Laura's, squeezed once. He told you, Laura said. He didn't have to. I pulled the police reports from 15 years ago after the warehouse incident yesterday. Cross-referenced the victims. Madam Chin's gaze was steady. Laura Slade, age 7, Joshua Beard, age 7. Kidnapped by Laura's father, held for ransom. Rescued when someone triggered a fire alarm. It was her, Joshua said quietly. She saved us both. Madame Chin was quiet for a long moment. Then, the girl who protected you once is protecting us now, whether she knows it or not. She picked up her purse, Hermes, probably worth more than Laura's childhood home. The annulment offer is rescinded. Your family, Miss Slade, for as long as you choose to be. She left before Laura could respond. They returned to Laura's room in silence. Joshua helped her back into bed, gentle, careful, and settled into his plastic chair like he intended to stay another 18 hours. You should go home, Laura said. Sleep in an actual bed. I'm fine here. Joshua, I left you alone once at the warehouse 15 years ago when the police separated us and I couldn't find you afterward. His voice was raw. I'm not leaving again. Laura's throat tightened. It wasn't your fault. We were children. And now we're not, which means I get to choose. He leaned back, closed his eyes. I'm choosing to stay. Laura's phone buzzed at 11:23 p.m. A text from an unknown number. Heard about your hospital stay. Tough break. By the way, might want to check your desk at Meridian when you get back. Someone left you a surprise. A concerned colleague. Below it, a photo. Laura's desk at the design house. Her drawer pulled open. Inside, a prototype clutch. Expensive, distinctive, marked with Meridian's logo. The same prototype that had gone missing from Mr. John's locked office 3 days ago. The same one he'd accused the entire team of stealing. Someone had planted evidence. And Laura was about to be framed for theft. She was discharged at 6:00 a.m. against medical advice and Joshua's explicit objections. You need rest. I need to get to Meridian before Mr. John destroys my career. Laura pulled on the clothes Joshua had brought. Jeans, simple blouse, flats she could move in. Someone planted that prototype. If I don't prove I'm innocent before the office opens, I can handle this. Joshua stood between her and the door. One call to Meridian's CEO, and Mr. John is suspended pending investigation. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Laura met his eyes. If you fix this for me, I'll never know if I earned my place there. I'll always be the girl you rescued. The $5 million bride who needed her husband to fight her battles. You almost died yesterday, which is exactly why I need to do this myself. Laura's voice softened. Please, Joshua, let me win this one on my own. He studied her for a long moment, the stubborn set of her jaw, the steel beneath exhaustion. Finally, he stepped aside. I won't interfere, he said, but I'm driving you there. Non-negotiable. They arrived at Meridian at 7:23 a.m. The design floor was empty, lights still dim. Laura's desk sat exactly as the photo had shown it. Drawer slightly open, prototype visible inside. She pulled on latex gloves borrowed from Joshua's paranoid emergency kit and photographed the scene from every angle. Evidence, carefully documented. Then she got to work. The prototype was a limited edition clutch designed for the Harrington Foundation Gala. Hand-beaded, one of 3 in existence. Mr. John had been obsessing over it for weeks, kept it locked in his office, showed it off like a trophy. Laura pulled up Meridian's server access logs on her workstation. Every file opened, every email sent, every door unlocked with a badge. Tracked, time-stamped, he's stored. She started building a timeline. April 10th, 11:47 p.m. Someone accessed Mr. John's office. Badge ID guest temp 07. April 10th, 11:52 p.m. File opened on design server, Harrington prototype specs.c8. April 11th, 12:03 a.m. Same badge accessed the storage room where finished pieces were kept. April 11th, 8:34 a.m. Mr. John reported the prototype missing. While Laura was in the hospital, someone accessed her desk area. Badge ID, guest temp 07 again. Laura cross-referenced the guest badge logs. Temp badges required sponsor approval. Someone with senior credentials had to authorize them. The sponsor for guest temp 07, Mr. John himself. She leaned back, mind racing. He'd created a burner badge, used it to steal his own prototype, then planted it in her desk to frame her. But why? What did he gain? Her phone buzzed. Joshua, from the parking lot where he'd promised to wait. Need anything? I have a security algorithm that might help. Can isolate individual user patterns even through guest accounts. Your choice. Laura stared at the message. A tool, not a solution, just a tool she could use herself. She texted back, send it. The algorithm arrived as a Python script, elegant, efficient, probably worth 6 figures on the private security market. Laura ran it against Meridian's server logs. Within 3 minutes, it flagged anomalies. Guest Temp 07 badge showed access patterns matching Mr. John's personal login. Same typing speed on the Kiad software. Same file navigation habits. Same 20-second pause every hour. Exactly when Mr. John took his smoke breaks. The burner badge was Mr. John's digital shadow. Laura compiled everything into a single document. Timestamps, badge logs, the algorithm analysis, photographs of the planted prototype. Clean, irrefutable, professional. At 8:47 a.m., employees started arriving. By 9 o'clock a.m., the design floor was full. Mr. John entered at 9:12, coffee in hand, already smiling his predatory smile. He made a show of walking to Laura's desk. "Miss Slade, welcome back. I hope you're feeling—" He stopped, stared at her open drawer. "What is that?" "Your prototype," Laura said calmly. "The one that went missing last week. Someone planted it in my desk while I was hospitalized." Mr. John's face performed shock beautifully. "Planted? That's impossible. How would anyone—" "Guest badge Temp 07, authorized by you on April 10th. Laura stood, held up her tablet, showing the evidence. "The same badge that accessed your office, the design server, and the storage room the night the prototype disappeared." The room had gone silent. Everyone watching. "That's absurd. I authorized that badge for a potential client tour." At 11:47 p.m., after business hours, Laura pulled up the security algorithm analysis. "And this client just happened to have identical typing patterns to you. Same SAD navigation style. Same smoke break schedule." Mr. John's face was turning red. "You can't prove—" "True. I can, and I did." Laura forwarded the complete report to HR and Meridian's executive team. "Check your email. Everything's documented." By 11 a.m., Mr. John was in HR's office, escorted by security. By noon, he'd been terminated for theft and evidence tampering. By 2:00 p.m., Meridian's CEO, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria Chen, called Laura into her office. "You could have let Beard Capital handle this," Victoria said. "Joshua owns this company. One word from him and Mr. John would have disappeared." "I know," Laura said, "but I didn't want to owe my career to my marriage." Victoria smiled, genuine, impressed. "Good, because I don't promote people based on who they're sleeping with. I promote based on competence." She slid a document across her desk. "Senior Coordinator. Leading our new social impact design line. Profits fund microloans for women escaping predatory debt situations." Laura's breath caught. "Social impact. Your idea from the proposal you submitted last month, before all this chaos." Victoria's expression softened. "You're good at this, Laura, not because of Joshua Beard, because of you. Don't forget that." That evening, a delivery arrived at the penthouse. Purple roses, 24, perfect, arranged in crystal. The card read, "Welcome to the family." MC Madame Chin's handwriting. Elegant, deliberate, not a threat this time. An acknowledgement. Laura set them on the dining table next to the wilted remains of Wayne's poisoned bouquet, still kept as evidence, still radioactive with intent. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Anonymous source leaks Beard marriage contract. 5M on bride details. Go viral. Laura's stomach dropped. She clicked the link. The article had everything. The contract terms, the 3-month duration, the payment amount, screenshots of the notarized document, complete with signatures. And buried in the text, sources confirm Laura Slade will attend tomorrow's charity ball at the Metropolitan Club. Will the contract bride survive her public debut? Below the article, hundreds of comments, thousands of shares, influencers circling like sharks, promising live coverage, real-time commentary, the schadenfreude spectacle of watching a poor girl play princess. Wayne Jones had tagged himself in the comments. "Can't wait for tomorrow night. Front row seats to the performance." Joshua appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, face grim. "He leaked it." "I know. We don't have to go. We can cancel, release a statement." "No, Laura looked at the purple roses, both sets, the poisoned and the welcoming. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of letting people like Wayne control the narrative. She turned to Joshua. I sold myself for $5 million to save my mother's house. That's the truth. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Laura, tomorrow night, I walk into that ballroom on your arm. I let them stare. I let them judge. Her voice was steel-wrapped in silk. And then I show them exactly what a contract bride is worth. Joshua's expression shifted, surprise, then something fiercer, pride. Okay, he said quietly, then we go to war. The Metropolitan Club charity ball was 18 hours away, and the entire city would be watching. The Metropolitan Club ballroom made the Rothmore Hotel look modest. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars hung from gilded ceilings. White marble columns soared 3 stories. A string orchestra played from a raised platform, while 500 guests in designer gowns and custom tuxedos pretended not to stare at their phones, where Laura's leaked contract had been trending for 16 hours. She stood at the top of the grand staircase, Joshua's hand firm at the small of her back. Below, the crowd shifted. Whispers rippled like wind through wheat. That's her, the $5 million bride. Laura wore the purple silk again, armor now, not costume. Her chin was up, her hands steady in Joshua's. Ready, he murmured. No, but I'm going anyway. They descended. Wayne, he'd positioned himself perfectly, center of the ballroom, surrounded by influencers with phone cameras already recording. Wayne Jones wore white tonight, pristine and angelic, every inch the wrong socialite exposing corruption. When Laura and Joshua reached the ballroom floor, Wayne's voice carried across the suddenly silent space. There she is, the famous contract bride. He raised his champagne flute in mock toast. Tell me, Mrs. Beard, how does it feel to be purchased like a designer handbag? Did you negotiate installments, or was it a lump sum? Laughter scattered through the crowd, nervous, cruel. Laura's grip on Joshua's arm tightened, but she kept moving forward. Wayne circled closer, phones following him like pilot fish. $5 million for 3 months. That's what, $55,000 per day? Excellent hourly rate for playing dress up. Enough, Joshua's voice cut through the mockery like a blade. Oh, the buyer speaks. Wayne's smile was vicious. Defend your purchase, Beard. Tell us, is she worth the investment? The camera swung toward on them. Hundreds of eyes, thousands watching via live stream. Joshua released Laura's hand, not abandoning her, but freeing himself to move. He stepped forward, putting himself between her and Wayne with the calm of someone who'd calculated this moment down to the second. You're right, Joshua said clearly. Laura signed a contract for $5 million. But let me tell you what you're not reporting. He pulled out his phone, tapped it. The ballroom's projection screens, meant for charity slideshows, flickered to life. Bank statements filled the walls. This is Jeffrey Morgan's account. Here, Joshua highlighted a transfer. $3 million funneled from Laura's forged loan documents. And here, another highlight. Routed to Gary Ambrose's Shell Corporation. Both men are currently in custody for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. The whispers changed pitch, confusion replacing mockery. Laura didn't sell herself, Joshua continued, voice carrying to every corner. She was sold by predators who engineered debt to trap her. The contract I offered was legal protection, not purchase. Wayne's smile faltered. That's a convenient story. It's documented fact. Joshua tapped again. Criminal complaints filled the screens. Official seals, case numbers, arrest warrants. Jeffrey Morgan, Gary Ambrose, and Patricia Morris, the nurse who poisoned Laura's champagne at the last gala, are facing federal charges. The crowd gasped. Joshua's gaze swept the room, landing on each influencer's camera. And Wayne Jones, who orchestrated that poisoning and leaked Laura's contract to humiliate her, is currently under investigation for attempted murder and criminal harassment. You can't prove, Wayne started. Bank transfers, text messages, CCTV footage, all submitted to prosecutors. Joshua's voice was ice. As of this morning, your trust fund accounts are frozen pending civil litigation. Your social club memberships, suspended. Your art gallery, bankrupt. Wayne's face went white. So when you ask if she's worth the investment, Joshua turned, extended his hand to Laura. She's not an investment. She's my wife, and anyone who threatens her answers to me. A damn chin. She'd been watching from the sidelines, champagne untouched, calculating the social calculus of this moment. The room was teetering, half ready to applaud Joshua's defense, half still doubting, still judging, still seeing Laura as a transaction. Madame Chin set down her glass and stepped forward. Silence rippled outward from her presence, the kind of quiet that came when old money spoke. I owe this room an apology, she said, voice carrying with aristocratic precision. When I first met Laura Slade, I saw what you're seeing now. A girl who took money, a convenient arrangement, something temporary. She moved toward Laura, each step deliberate. I was wrong. Madam Chin stopped beside Joshua, creating a united front. What I didn't see was the woman who protected my ward when they were children, who chewed through duct tape until her gums bled to free him from kidnappers, who triggered a fire alarm that saved both their lives. The room held its breath. Laura didn't marry Joshua for money. She married him because 15 years ago, she saved his life. Madame Chin's gaze swept the crowd, landing on each person who'd laughed. And anyone who mocks her tonight is laughing at poison, at predators, at the men who tried to kill her for refusing to be sold. The shift was immediate, phone cameras lowering, ashamed faces, the social tide turning on a matriarch's word. Wayne tried to slip toward the exit. Mr. Jones, Madam Chin's voice stopped him cold. Stay. The police will want a word. The microphone was thrust into her hand before she could process what was happening. An event coordinator? Apologetic? Assuming she'd want to speak. Laura looked at the sea of faces, at the cameras still recording, at Wayne pale and trapped, at Joshua standing steady beside her. She could stay silent. Let Joshua and Madame Chin's words be enough. Hide behind their power and protection. Or she could claim her own voice. Laura lifted the microphone. You want to know if I'm here by choice? Her voice shook but carried. Yes, I signed a contract for $5 million because men I trusted trapped me in manufactured debt, because my mother would have lost her home, because I was desperate. The room was perfectly silent. But I'm standing here tonight, Laura looked at Joshua, because somewhere in the last month, the contract stopped being the reason I stayed. I stayed because this man spent $5 million not to own me, but to free me. Because he fought my battles when I couldn't, because he slept in a plastic hospital chair for 18 hours when he could have been anywhere else. Joshua's expression cracked, just slightly, the mask slipping to show something raw. The contract says 3 months, Laura continued. After that, I'm free to leave, to walk away with a settlement and start fresh somewhere new. She paused. But I'm not going to. The ballroom held its breath. I'm staying because I choose him. Not his money, not his protection, him. Laura's voice strengthened. So yes, I'm the $5 million bride, and I'm proud of it, because it means I survived. And now I'm choosing my own future. She handed the microphone back and turned to Joshua. He was staring at her like she'd rewritten gravity. Laura, he started. She kissed him. Not for the cameras, not for the crowd, for herself. When they broke apart, the ballroom erupted. Applause, flashing cameras, the peculiar sound of a room collectively realizing they'd witnessed something real. Wayne was being escorted out by security. Madame Chin was smiling, actually smiling, and Laura was breathing like she'd just run a marathon, but standing straighter than she ever had. Joshua's phone buzzed. His expression changed instantly, from wonder to ice. What? Laura whispered. He showed her the screen. A news alert. Breaking. Jeffrey Morgan escapes house arrest. Federal marshals issue warrant. Suspect considered armed and dangerous. Below it, a text from an unknown number. You think you won? The game's not over. I'm coming for what's mine. J.M. The ballroom celebration continued around them, oblivious. But Laura's blood had turned to ice. Jeffrey was out there, and he was coming. They found Jeffrey at dawn. Federal marshals tracked his phone to the riverfront. the same warehouse where Laura's childhood had fractured, where her father had tried to sell two 7-year-olds for ransom money. Jeffrey had broken in through the rusted loading dock, carrying a hard drive containing backup files he had hidden before his arrest. Evidence. Leverage. One last card to play. He almost made it to the water, but the doorway, the same crooked frame Laura had stumbled through 15 years ago, when police sirens finally came, caught his jacket. He yanked, panicked, and the fabric tore. The hard drive clattered to concrete. By the time he freed himself, 3 marshals had guns drawn. "Hands up, now!" Jeffrey raised his hands, breathing hard, and looked back at the doorway that had betrayed him. Poetic justice, Laura thought, watching through the police cruiser window as they loaded him into custody. The same door that had trapped her as a child had caught the man who tried to sell her as an adult. Joshua sat beside her, his hand warm around hers. "It's over." "Was it?" The marshals recovered the drive. "Jeffrey's leverage is gone. Your father's in custody. Ambrose is facing federal charges. Wayne's trust fund is frozen." Joshua squeezed her hand. "It's over, Laura. You're free." Free. The word felt foreign, heavy, real. The arraignment was a blur of legal procedure and fluorescent lights. Laura's father sat in orange scrubs behind bulletproof glass, looking smaller than memory had made him. When his eyes found hers, he smiled. Bitter. Broken. "Come to gloat?" His voice crackled through the intercom. "No." Laura's voice was steady. "I came to say I won't visit again. I won't take your calls. I won't be currency anymore." His smile faded. "You were always ungrateful. I was always a person. You just never noticed." Laura stood. "Goodbye." She walked out before he could respond, before the old guilt could take root again. Joshua was waiting in the hallway. He didn't ask if she was okay, just fell into step beside her, solid and present. Outside, spring sunlight painted the courthouse steps gold. "Where to?" Joshua asked. "Home," Laura said, then corrected. "Our home," 3 weeks later. Laura woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the golden headboard in shades of amber and rose. The penthouse bedroom, her bedroom now, not a temporary holding space, smelled like coffee and fresh flowers. White roses and purple ones, mixed together in crystal vases. Joshua stood by the window, already dressed in dark slacks and that open white shirt that had become his signature. Sleeves rolled, collar unbuttoned, looking like money and danger and home all at once. "You're awake." He crossed to the bed, sat on the edge. "I brought you something." The purple satin dress hung from his hand, the one she'd worn to the first gala, the ballroom reckoning, the night everything changed. "I thought we retired this," Laura said. "We're bringing it back. One more time." Joshua's smile was soft, "because it looks like courage, and today requires courage." "Why? What's today?" "The day we stop pretending." They drove to the courthouse. Different courthouse, different purpose. No arraignments or trials, just a clerk's office with fluorescent lights and practical furniture. Joshua pulled out a document. Not the contract, not the protection notice. A marriage license. Blank. Waiting. 3 months are up next week, he said quietly. The contract expires. You're free to leave. Laura looked at the paper, at the empty signature lines. "Or," Joshua continued, "we sign this. No terms, no deadline, no transaction." His voice dropped. "Just us, choosing each other. For real." Laura picked up the pen. Her hand didn't shake this time. She signed her name, Laura Slade Beard, and slid the document to Joshua. He signed below hers, and the clerk stamped it official. "Congratulations," the clerk said, bored. "You're married." They already were, had been for 3 months. But this was different. This was theirs. 6 months later, the social impact design line launched in September, fronted by Meridian and funded through Beard Capital. Profits went to microloans for women escaping predatory debt. The scholarship fund, registered under Laura's mother's name, not hers, provided full tuition for 50 students that first year. Patricia Morris took a plea deal, testimony that exposed a network of medical fraud stretching across 3 hospital systems. Madame Chin personally oversaw the investigation, ruthless and thorough. Wayne Jones declared bankruptcy by October. His art gallery sold at auction. Laura bought it with her Meridian salary and turned it into a community resource center. And the contract, the original document that started everything, sat in a safe deposit box marked evidence, closed case, until the day Joshua and Laura retrieved it together. They burned it in the penthouse fireplace, watched $5 million worth of paper turn to ash and smoke. Laura stood in the golden bedroom as twilight painted the city purple and gold. She wore the satin dress. Joshua wore his open white shirt. Between them, white roses, purple roses, 6 months of choosing each other every single day. The street I grew up on is talking about us, Laura said. About the poor girl who sold herself for $5 million and ended up owning her story. Let them talk. Joshua pulled her close, hands settling at her waist. You earned it. We earned it. We did. Outside the windows, the city glittered. A million stories, a million people trying to survive. Some would sell themselves. Some would be sold. Some would find someone willing to pay $5 million not to own them, but to set them free. Laura leaned into Joshua's shoulder, breathing in coffee and cedar and safety. The contract was ash. The debt was erased. The future was handwritten, together, in a language only they understood. I'd do it again, Laura whispered. Sign that contract. Walk into that golden bedroom, all of it. Why, Maya? Because it led me here, to you, to us. Joshua kissed her forehead, gentle and sure. Then it was worth every penny. Below them, the city hummed with stories yet unwritten. And in a penthouse 53 floors above the chaos, two people who'd been kidnapped as children, poisoned as adults, and married as protection, stood together in purple and gold light. Not purchased, not sold, just chosen.